Are we on?
Yes, we are on TV, yep. We gotta wait.
Have one. It's next to it. Bert have
I
one?
don't see a light.
There we go.
We don't have the, yes, now we do.
Okay.
Okay, it being 7:02 on Thursday, December 3rd, I call the meeting of the Board of Health to order. Our first appointment is not until 7:15, so until then, we'll deal with other issues on the agenda. Mike, do you have any warrants?
Yes, we have one warrant.
Just one.
Thank you.
Minutes of November 12th. Lucy just said she had no comments. Didn't you?
I forward them
No,
to
but I didn't have any
Fran.
comments. You read my mind.
I thought I heard you say that. Okay.
I submitted my comments.
Mind reading.
Yeah, I didn't have any.
I submit mine to Fran if I have any, so.
Okay. Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion, sorry, to approve the public session minutes of November 12th, 2015.
Second?
I second
favor?
that.
Aye.
Aye.
Can I use your pen? I'm all electronic today.
Mobile food permit for Cape Cod Donuts.
Is there a donut rush happening?
There's a whole donut rush.
Fine,
I
I'm just.
believe there
wanting to
is.
know.
But the funny part is, they called me on both of them, and both of them are making the exact same thing.
All right, so that was my question. So you got a call to approve prior to the meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
because
because
they
I
want-
drove by and saw a sign, and I thought,
I approved
it's
it.
on our agenda. Okay,
Telephonically based on the inspection.
okay. Because they were in a big hurry to open on a Thursday?
Yes. What can I tell you?
Donut rush.
Donut rush. All right, so talk to us about Cape Cod Donuts.
Cape Cod Donuts. This is Scott Morse. All right, the applicant contacted the Board of Health to open a mobile food establishment located at Cape Cod Coffee. The applicant requested a temporary opening to help out the new owners of the Cape Cod Coffee Roasters business. Ronnie contacted the chair and received a temporary approval to operate. The inspection has been done. There was an issue with the hot water, but that's been resolved. So, at this point, where the request was done after November 1st, the fee is for the balance of 2015 and for an annual 2016 mobile food permit.
Do you know, are they planning to, I mean, I saw that they were over here at Cape Cod Coffee. Is that going to be their sort of permanent location? or-
That is gonna be their more than sort of permanent location.
Even though they're mobile, so they can do events
They
and
can,
things
they
if
can
want.
do other things, but I don't believe they plan on moving. They have some grandiose ideas over there, and this is just the start.
Last time they were here, I asked whether they were gonna do K-Cups, and the answer was yes. But it's a whole process to get approval. Whatever.
I don't have an issue. Do you have an issue with this?
Grandiosity, starting with donuts? No, I have no issue with that.
Let's
I'm-
start from the bottom.
I make a motion to approve the 2015-2016 permit for the, for Scott Morse, doing business as, is it Cape Cod Donuts, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Cape Cod Donuts.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Mhm.
Okay. That was... Now we have a retail food permit for Michael's Donuts.
I couldn't read this application to save my life.
Yeah, I had a hard time with it as well. Is
Well-
there some way that when they fill out the application, it can be reviewed and ask them to write it in handwriting that's legible?
I was right there when he wrote it. Didn't think it was that bad.
Well, you know, one of the things that concerned me is the emergency telephone number I couldn't read that, and if there was an emergency, what would we do?
I could read it on the original, so it may not have copied well, but
If there's a
it was,
donut emergency, you can have them call me.
right.
Their hours of operation, I have no idea what that says.
Well, they're working within the organic market.
Oh, that's
So
what
this,
that is.
the skinny in this is that the applicant had been operating at the Mashpee Commons Farmers Market and was asked to stay and sell donuts and make donuts within the organic market. And where they're a different faction, then they needed their own individual permit to work within the organic food market store.
Okay.
So,
Is there a serve-safe or certified food manager on site there, or do they need to augment their application? to
they submitted,
handler, right?
a food handler, and that should be actually a certified food manager's certificate, so I was gonna recommend to the board to give him 60 days to up that. Because that, granted, he's not making potentially hazardous food, but still, the board has been pretty consistent with requiring the full certified, where he's operating as his own establishment.
He's
To be-
obviously been operating in Falmouth at their farmer's market.
Yep.
And so are they giving him a corner of the store or something? I mean, this was not clear what was going on.
I'm
square that says
not
donuts.
100% sure Ronnie went out and did it, and I didn't really get a good description on where he was set up.
Clearly not a planner with any kind of engineering background. Rectangle that
But
said
it
donuts.
draws well. Hey, listen, better that than nothing.
As long as they know how to make donuts and can stay sanitary.
Well, they asked him to stay, so he must be doing something right.
Are they the apple cider donuts that they have?
Yes.
Yes.
I've had those at Harvest
They're-
Fest.
They
Those
they
are,
both on their applications said they were gonna be selling apple cider donuts.
didn't catch
Oh, I
that.
didn't catch that either.
So,
Well, I will make a motion to approve the 2015 and 2016 food establishment permit for Michael McFadden, doing business as Michael's Donuts, with the condition that he obtains a certified food manager certificate within 60 days.
I'll second that.
those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. We're still a ways from 7:15. Boys and Girls Club Wine and Beer Tasting Event. I don't have any documentation on that.
No, and it all came in late, and this was really kind of more of an FYI for the board than anything else.
Okay, that's fine.
Ronnie's had been working with Ruth Provost at the Boys and Girls Club on this fundraiser for a couple of weeks, and it took everybody until the last minute to submit all of their paperwork. It is a fundraiser over at Joy Street. I guess they're working out of in one of the vacant storefronts. And so they're doing this fundraiser for, it's like Taste of Mashpee. It's,
It just sounds a little incongruous, asking for a liquor license for the Boys and Girls Club.
Well, they're not asking us for that, fortunately. We
yeah,
don't
it's-
do that.
It's called Boys and Girls Club Wine, Beer, and Food Tasting. They did do this last year.
Still sounds.
It's their second time they've done it. 9 food establishments are participating, 3 of which are caterers. Bellagio, Regatta, Roach Brothers, Wicked, Asia, The Lanes, Pilot House Restaurant from Sandwich, Eat Your Heart Out Catering, Mezzaluna, and Taste of Asia from Sandwich.
Sounds fun.
Boys and Girls Club provided their 501c3 exemption, so no fees were charged. Temporary food permit review was done by staff, and Ronnie is doing the inspections as we speak.
Oh, it's,
It's
I was gonna
going
say,
on.
when is it?
It's going on today, and we got all the information yesterday, so,
Doesn't matter if
everything,
we approve it or not, apparently.
yeah, everything came in last minute, so I guess, just to have the board approve it as an annual event, everything came in kind of late on this one, so.
Okay, I'm good with it.
My only question, not question, but my comment would be that in the past, we have tried to crack down on these last-minute rushes, and this is in my 11 years, 10 years of
Yeah.
this is the worst offender
Right.
tonight. I know that Ronnie is there doing her inspection, but, you know, a scramble like this at the last minute is, you know, not something that I would like to see again.
Neither did I, and Ronnie did not let me know that this was going on, and so that's why I needed to get with her on this, because she had told me she's been working with Ruth on this, and I didn't know anything about
The
it.
problem is that if there really is an issue, then, you know, we're kind of behind the eight ball.
Right. And we've gotten after the chamber to be more proactive on
Right.
some of these things, and I just feel that maybe just a little heads up to them, to ask
Yep.
them to get this in and done a little bit sooner would be great.
Especially if it's not a one-timer, if it's an annual event, there's a protocol in place, it's not rocket science.
And they don't pull this together in 24 hours, this is months of planning, so.
So do we need to make a motion to approve the temporary food permit for the Boys and Girls Club wine, beer, and food tasting event?
I'll second the
Those in
motion.
favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. And the request for fee waiver for 10 Quashnet Road Stable.
That's gonna be delayed till the next meeting. That, was put on this agenda, but is actually dated for the next meeting. Norma couldn't make it to this meeting.
Okay.
Want to give us a quick update on 394 Katuah Road?
Sure. Sure. I don't really have anything, actually. Erica has not sent me anything recently, more recent than the last meeting,
Okay.
but.
I don't expect anything every time we meet.
Yeah, but by next meeting, we should have another monthly inspection with Ronnie to go in and have a progress report, both from Erica and Ronnie, for the next meeting.
Okay. Let's go on to our 7:15 appointment. Doug, you're up.
Thanks for having me tonight. I am Doug Carson. I work for the Air Force Civil Engineer Center out of Joint Base Cape Cod. Been out there for many years, and I'm here tonight to just give you an update on where we are with the program. I don't believe I did it last year, so it's been about almost 2 years since giving an update.
We missed you.
Before I get started, you should have a handout, and it looks like this. Just walk through that. The first page is front to back. That's just my talking points for tonight. Then there are two groundwater plume maps. The first is just the plumes, and there's a second one, which is more colorful, which has a lot of names of source areas and the plumes on there. So you have that, and that kind of reflects this area up here on this map that I'm going to be referring to a little bit, just so you know that. And then I have information on the Quashnet Bog, where we have a treatment system operating, and then there's information on the pond testing that we do in both the Schmidt and John's. Okay, so what do we have out at the base right now? We have 14 groundwater plumes. When I say plumes, I'm talking about areas of groundwater contamination that contain either cleaning solvents or fuel-related compounds. More recently, in the last year and a half, we've added to our program looking for what are called emergent contaminants, and I'm sure you're very familiar with that. Those are things like 1,4-dioxane, which is related to cleaning solvents, and also perfluorinated compounds, which is related to firefighting foam. So we are looking at in several of the plumes, one of which is in Mashpee, the CS10 plume, which, if you look on your map, it's in the Schmidt Pond, Johns Pond area. It's actually one of the largest plumes that we have. You can see a portion of it here extending, goes under a Schmidt Pond, and then there's a couple of different lobes that we have associated with that, and also over by Currier Road here. But we're going to be looking for those types of contaminants also. So we have 14 plumes. 9 of those have treatment on them. The rest are being monitored on the base. We're treating about 10 million gallons a day, which is down from our high of about 18 million gallons a day many years back. which is good news, because these things get cleaned up, you shut off the wells, you know, turn down the volume and so on, so things are getting better, the plumes are, you know, getting reduced.
Question, if you left it alone, would you shorten the time frame?
No,
Okay,
the short answer.
all right.
They actually looked at that many years ago, back in 1996, when the Air Force came in to take over management control. They did a little, you know, study on, you know, how long it would take to do nothing and just put people on town water, and, you know, cost-benefit analysis and that. And I think the number I heard was like 200 years it would take. You know, a lot of these plumes are actually already been cleaned up, like in Briarwood here in Mashpee, that plume's no longer there.
Yep,
It's a success
SD5,
story.
yep.
I think that system operated about 7 years, and then was shut off, and, you know, we just monitor out there now. You know, some of the larger plumes, like we have CS10, that's gonna operate for 20 years, because we have just so much stuff up on the base that still needs to be cleaned, but, you know, we're making progress on that. Just going back to just a general update here, we have 80 source areas. Those are locations on the base where, you know, we had to look at to find whether there was contamination associated with those. 61 of those are no longer with our program. They've been delisted formally from the Superfund program. The rest we're still working on. They're associated with the groundwater plumes and, you know, a few other areas. Just looking forward, kind of jumping ahead, I mentioned before that, like, the CS10 plume is a very large groundwater plume. It extends a couple of miles way up on the base where the old Bullmark missile site used to be. That's probably going to have to operate 20 years or more. And some of the other systems that we have may have to operate that long. But others will be shut off, as they have in the past, in the next couple of years. And I'll talk about FS1 in just a moment, which is here in Mashpee. We also, you know, look at optimizing and just.
Those wind turbines already exist, don't they?
What is that?
Wind turbines that you mentioned,
Yes.
they already exist.
The wind turbines do exist. We built the first one in 2009. Then we built 2 more up by the Sagamore Bridge in 2011. And those 3 turbines together pay for all the electricity that we need, which is almost $1.5 million a year to run all these treatment systems that we have going.
That's great.
The secondary benefit is we're not buying electricity from power plants, which burn fossil fuels, so we're not buying it and sending pollutants into the air, which was one of the reasons that we wanted to do this. It didn't make sense. You're pulling this out of the ground, you're cleaning it, but you're buying electricity that's putting pollutants into the air. It just doesn't make sense.
Do you have the capacity yet to sell any?
Well, the way it works now is we operate the turbines, they go into the grid, and we get our credit back.
You do, okay.
And then, you know, whatever, just, you know, we use it for electricity. If there's an overage, then it goes to whatever, you know, whatever the, you know, the budget program is there. We also have it, you know, and I'll talk about this in just a moment, the residential well verification program. Mr. Harrington has been very helpful with me in the last couple of years, doing some research out in Mashpee. We have some decisions that still need to be made. A couple of years ago, when we had one of our turbine ceremonies, you know, I think it was I who announced, all decisions were made, all treatment systems are in place. Well, it's never over till it's over. And so we have a couple other sites that we've reopened, and they're listed there. There's a former firefighter training area and an LF2, and then a storage area where they had fuel, and also something called the Military Munitions Response Program. Those are sites that were added about 2.5, 3 years ago to our program. These are areas that are no longer active training areas, but they were areas where there may have been munitions used at those sites. And so they gave them to us, and we're in the process of investigating those. And there are 4 in Mashpee, in the southeastern portion of the basin. If you go to that colorful map, it looks like this. It's the one north of Johns Pond, you'll see. One of them is really small. It's called Target Butt. But those are being investigated. We've been doing that for about 2 months now. So far, we haven't found anything, which is good. Hopefully, it'll stay that way. We're now looking to add new source areas of plumes, but, you know, we have to make sure. And so that's, you know, what's going there. So we have a few more decisions to make in our program. Right now, we'll just talk about CS10. It's called Chemical Spill 10. This is a groundwater plume that extends way up on the base, flows down towards Shumet Pond, and here along Sandwich Road, we have extraction wells that pump the water out, cleans it. We also have wells up on the base, the main body of the plume. We have an extraction well here on Currier Road, and we have one over here on Hoopole Road. And you see this here in the pond. It's not actually going into the pond, it goes under the pond. These are interpretations based on our groundwater testing.
Is that extraction well still operating, Doug, on Hoop Hole?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then these two plumes, you don't see a red dot at the end of those. Those are just being monitored because they're not moving any further, and that's the way it's been for many, many years.
Doug, you've got several situations that you're monitoring. Have you found, as a product of the monitoring, anything to be concerned about? Or is the monitoring all safe?
In terms of public health, no, we have not seen anything that would indicate a public health issue, which is our primary responsibility and concern. There are things that we find, like several years ago, we found that there was some contamination over here that wasn't being captured by our extraction well along Sandwich Road. We did some investigation, and then we wound up having to put in an extraction well on Courier Road. It's an evolving program, but we have a very vigorous monitoring network out there to sample all the wells, and if things pop up, obviously, we'll take charge. Not here in Mashpee, but in Falmouth, we do have an issue with emerging contaminants. We've been doing some private well testing, and I'll talk about that in Mashpee. That was done earlier this year by the EPA. But at least what we're doing right now is to make sure we know where these plumes are, and we do the testing that's required to be able to define where they are and make any adjustments that we need.
So at least in that instance, you found something that was unexpected.
That is correct. Right. But that's part of the monitoring program that we have, looking at thousands of monitoring wells all over the base and off base, doing the testing, whether it's once a year or twice a year or 3 times a year, and gathering that data to see if something changes. And it gives us time to do that and make sure that nobody's being affected. And we have, and I've talked to the board before about this, we have a very vigorous, what's called a land use control program, but it's basically going out and identifying all the private wells that there are in the 4 towns around the base that are in the areas of these plumes. And there are a lot of wells in Mashpee, I'll talk about in a moment, but to make sure that nobody is exposed to any contamination associated with these plumes. And so we've been doing that research. So for CS10, as I mentioned, it's a very large plume. It's being treated along Sandwich Road, here on Hoopole Road and Courier Road. We're also going to be testing within the plume. These are different areas for 1,4-dioxane, again, as an emerging contaminant. We are also going to test the ponds for 1,4-dioxane. We do the surface water testing, which is a couple of bullets down there, just for the volatile organic compounds, TC and PC, and so on, the fuels. But we're going to add 1,4-dioxane to those ponds. I'm not quite sure when that's going to happen, but hopefully before the end of this year. Anything else on Chemical Spill 10 here?
The wells in Southport still being sampled on the east side of Johns?
There are some wells over in this area that are part of our monitoring network.
Yeah, as far as the military wells, because I know that there were hits, but they were below drinking water.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. I believe the last couple of rounds have been non-detect.
Okay, great.
And they're extremely deep, I believe.
Yeah.
On average, how deep is CS10?
In this area, it's probably like 140 feet below ground surface, 150. So you're talking, pretty good distance into the aquifer. The aquifer, I don't know, is probably 40 feet here, maybe 50 feet. So it's a good 100 feet into the aquifer.
Yeah.
Are you testing directly downstream, as it were, like where the fire training are for the PFCs and where the landfill is for the 1,4-dioxane? Or like, are you just, what's your strategy there? And my second part of that question is, how do you add chemicals to be tested to the roster? Was it, you said the EPA found some emerging contaminants and brought that to your attention, or how does that work?
Well, we have a very vigorous program to look at emerging contaminants. That contract was awarded earlier this year. A lot of work on base, and now it's moved off base in the Shumat Valley, for the Shumat Valley plume, and now we're going to be doing the Chemical Spill 10 plume, which is this one here. That's for 1,4-dioxane. When you go over to Shumat Valley, you're talking about PFCs, which are related to the firefighting foam. Because we know that up gradient of the Shumat Valley plume, there was a firefighting training area, and there was a history there, and we did some sampling at the source area earlier this year, and we found, levels, above what the standards are. So, we're doing that, plus the private wells that I mentioned earlier. We went out and sampled about 50 private wells recently. We didn't get some of those results back. So, we're doing that up on the base. In terms of Mashpee, we did, we've been looking up in this area here.
That's where that landfill 6
Well,
was?
there's no landfill up there. That's all the flight line area.
Landfill 6?
Landfill 6? Is that I can't see it.
Right to the right of, well, above LF2.
Let me look at this.
I was just wondering if that was where you were looking for the 1,4-dioxane from the leachate?
Oh, the blue.
Yeah, landfill 6 may be a closed site. Like I said before, there were 61 sites. This lists all the source areas. So a lot of these no longer are, they're just on there because they were historically a source area. So I don't believe there's anything associated with LF6. You would see something coming from that. You would see, a brown area, if it was a groundwater plume coming from that area.
I was just wondering if that's where you were, since you were looking at contaminants of emerging concern, if you were looking at, instead of like sort of the whack-a-mole approach, if you were looking directly where, like, at the landfill.
Well, what we
6.
did, the first thing is to do a preliminary assessment where you go out and look at the records that the fire department has, the Air Force, the Army, whatever. Look at the uses that they have, records for the use of firefighting foam. We know we have an ongoing fire department out at the basins, who knows when. And they're still using the foam out there, by the way, which is allowed by Air Force policy until it's exhausted. But we looked at all these different areas where they might be, and we identified, we ranked them by, the highest likelihood to the lowest likelihood. We started at the highest, and now we've been going out there and drilling, monitoring wells, and we're finding some evidence of it. As far as Mashpee goes, we haven't found anything directly up gradient here in Mashpee, which is a good thing so far. But we, as we move a little further this way, get over towards the firefighter training area, there's a motor pool over here. That was on the base. We have some groundwater that has shown elevated levels there. So
I have
How
a,
do those get added onto the roster to be tested for, if they're emerging?
well, they're already, and then it's the Air Force policy that that's why we awarded a contract earlier this year to look at that. And so it's written that they're gonna look for 1,4-dioxane, the perfluorinated compounds associated with firefighting foam. And they're looking at several plumes, one of which is CS10, Shumat Valley, I think I left one over in Bourne, and one or two other plumes that are out at the base, based on the history of the sites as well as the history of what's in the plume.
Got
I have
it.
a very speculative question. From, I forget when this all started, 25 years ago, whenever. Looking,
Over 30 years ago.
okay,
I've been working out there just over 30.
all right, from 30 years ago to 20 years into the future, because you've used that figure, what has this program cost?
Right now, we're just over, I believe, $600 million. And I think cost of completion is around $850 million. But that's subject to change now.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
I could use the money. $850 million. Okay. Surprisingly, I thought it was going to be much higher than that.
That's what we're projecting right now. Maybe a little bit more now that we've added those additional sites, the ones in purple.
And the contaminants.
And emerging, well, that's gonna be an interesting one, because you probably know that, the things we're talking about, the 1,4-dioxane and the stuff related to firefighting foam, it's very common in the environment. It's very common in our households. You can find, it in cosmetics, you can find it in varnish, you can find it, go home tonight and you fry something in a pan that has the,
The nonstick.
coating on it, the
yeah.
Teflon coating or whatever, they use that, carpet treatments, upholstery. So it's all over the place. So what we're trying to do is see what are we causing, that being the Air Force, and then trying to figure out what else, was going on out there, because, right now we don't know. We're just kind of trying to identify what has been caused by the Air Force. So,
Just as an aside, 2 hot button topics with Eastham with 1,4-dioxane, they're getting town water now, and in the town of Barnstable with the PFCs for the firefighting foam. So it's like very current right now for Cape Cod water from a regional perspective, not just a Mashpee perspective, just so you are
But
aware.
unrelated to the military.
Leachate from the landfill in Eastham and perhaps the fire training academy in Barnstable.
All set? We're talking about FS1 right now? Just the one source area, used to radar aircraft back in the 60s, stop and test their fuel dump valves. And obviously that got in the ground, and the groundwater, and migrated down to the Quashnet bogs, down in this area. We used to have 4 operating extraction wells. Now only 1 is to operate because the plume has pretty much cleaned up in the bog area, and we're just dealing with. The plume continues to move to the south, and the good news is, based on our modeling and the levels in that particular plume, we expect cleanup to be done by 2020, if not sooner. In fact, I just got today an update on the highest concentration of EDB, which is ethylene dibromide, which was an additive to fuel. In FS1, the last sampling event was less than the state MMCL. The current EDB level was 0.017. The state standard is 0.02. So, in the monitoring wells that we have out there in testing, it's actually below the standard, but it fluctuates, depending, could change from day to day, but I would think in the next few years we'll be proposing to the regulatory agencies to shut down that last extraction well and just monitor, but it's worked pretty well out there, getting that cleaned up.
Are those cranberries harvestable?
They don't use the bogs for cranberries. They haven't done so for quite a few years.
I remember reading some time back in the Mashpee Enterprise when they stopped producing the
Right.
cranberries. So it's in recent memory in my view, so I wasn't sure if they were still.
Yeah, there was some discussions between the Air Force and the town and the Conservation Commission, but I'm not quite sure the status of that right now. I think they were looking to do some additional studies or some additional work on the berm that was out there that had subsided. But honestly, I don't know what the current status of that is. But I know for many years now that they haven't been harvested. It's kind of reverting back to a natural state. I don't know if you know anything.
They're looking to actually redirect the river a little bit, so it's gonna be a relatively major project. Yeah,
I didn't bring my checkbook.
yeah.
Redirect the river.
And then I just point out that one of the maps that you have in there is a map of the Quashnet bog area. It shows the sole sampling point that we do in the river on an annual basis, and that has been monitored for the past 3 years. We used to do more, but because the pools got cleaned up in that area, we went to other locations, and that was agreed to by the regulatory agencies, I should say. Anything on Quashnet River? We move on. All right, Ashuna Johns Pond, testing both of those ponds for many, many years, doing the surface water locations. You do have a map towards the back of your package that shows the 3 locations on both ponds, the boat ramp areas on both, and then the beaches. No detections at all for plume-related contaminants. We did a second test in Johns Pond in July, which was agreed to a couple of years ago when John Davis, our program manager back then, was here. We continue to do that, and again, no detections in Johns Pond for plume-related contaminants, but we did get a detection of toluene, which was below the reporting limit, which I believe is 1. The standard is 1,000, I think, for toluene. And we believe that's attributable to motorized boats, because we don't have that in plume.
Motorized what? Boats?
Boats, boat motors. Yep. So. But it's, as I said, it's below the reporting limit. It's extremely low. It's nothing to be concerned about. So it's less than 1, and the standard is 1,000, so. Toluene. So based on that, the Air Force believes that the ponds are safe to use for recreational purposes, which has been the case for many years, based on our testing. As I mentioned before, we are going to test Johns Pond for 1,4-dioxane as part of our CS10 investigation. And then also talk a little bit about Ashuna Pond, half of which is in Mashpee. I think the town line goes right through here. Right through here. Now, we've done a couple of treatments out there with alum the last 10 years, and we also put in a permeable reactive wall, or an iron barrier, I guess they call it, up in this area here, to intercept phosphorus coming from the base. The base is old wastewater treatment plant, where they used to discharge, so too much phosphorus in a pond can put too many nutrients in, and then you get algae and fish kills, and doesn't make it a very healthy pond. But the good news is, since we've been doing that, the quality of the pond has really improved, and they do sampling every year, looking at different kinds of things to be able to determine that. So it's moved from, being a very yucky pond, almost, to moving towards a very healthy pond. So it's a little more towards where we want to go. And right now, it doesn't look like we're going to need to do another treatment for a while, but we keep monitoring it, and if conditions change, certainly we might consider another alum treatment, but things seem to be pretty good in that area. Flip on the page here. We'll go with private wells. I know I'm going a little bit long here, is that okay?
That's fine.
Back about a year ago, we initiated some research to identify private wells in Mashpee and Sandwich. Basically down grading from the flight line area. Actually, it's over. Maybe I should flip this around. Basically out in this area, just off the flight line area. This is Route 130 area in Mashpee, heading up to Sandwich. These are the Echo Way area down in this area. These properties and all the houses on each side of the road there. And we identified 293 properties, most of those in Mashpee. And what we're looking for was evidence of contamination coming off the pipeline area here that might affect those particular wells that are out there, if there were wells. So we went out there and we identified, or we contacted 285 out of 293 properties. 237 of those were in Mashpee. 77 wells in Mashpee are used for drinking water. 20 of those have a municipal connection, but they're using their well for outside watering. In July of this year, the US EPA tested 13 drinking water wells from 12 properties, and those are all in Mashpee, and the results were all non-detect, and they were looking for the perfluorinated compounds.
Can I ask you to back up 1 second?
Sure.
You got 77 wells in Mashpee are used for drinking water.
Yep.
The next line says, 20 municipal, have a municipal connection and use their well for outside only. Are those 20 in addition to the 77?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Those are in addition.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
And so,
I'm gonna ask why 77 still haven't connected.
What about that last one? Did you have one person that you just couldn't get in touch
well,
with?
there
as
was
far as-
more than one. There were two in Mashpee that didn't respond. And we've tried, we did probably 7 or 8 attempts, knocking on doors, leaving notices, doing mailings, phone calls, and a lot of the properties over in that area are seasonal. And some people just don't want to respond to the government, it happens. But, we got pretty close to identifying them. But anyway, the EPA did some testing, they were all fine. Based on that and the research that we've done up on the base so far, there are no plans to do any additional testing, nor to go out and try and contact the remaining 8 or 9 property owners. The others are in Forestdale, just over the border, at least for now. I mean, if things were to change, then we'd certainly go out and consider doing some additional testing of private wells, maybe test them all, if it were to come to that. But right now, it doesn't look like there's anything up gradient would be heading down that way to affect those private wells. Because there are no water mains for a good section of that Route 130 area in the town of Mashpee. So, let's see, talked about that. The other area is Briarwood, between Ashuna and Johns Pond. Right in here. Again, it's near the flight line, possible use of firefighting foam. We had done some research earlier in our program down in this area associated with CS10, but then we expanded to all these houses out in this area. So that was 245, I believe. Where am I? I lost my count. 245 parcels in Briarwood. We were able to contact all those property owners, along with help from Mr. Harrington in both areas, actually. 89 wells were identified, 11 are active, all are used for outside watering, except one is used for washing machines. So there are no drinking water wells in this particular area.
One that is used for plural washing machines?
Yes.
You want to tell us more about that?
It's over by the beach area. It's a very large complex.
Okay.
I'm not, our policy is not to really talk about specific addresses,
Okay.
but I can certainly provide you with that information, and Mr. Harrington, I think, knows about
That's
that.
just a little strange, but okay.
It just caught my eye. Okay.
Yeah, so that's that, and then, some of the things we'll be doing in the future, we do an annual mailing to all the homeowners that have an inactive well, asking them if they've been restarted. And there are 2 issues here in Mashpee, and Glenn, you'll be getting that hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I did check on that today, it's still going through review, but there were 2 properties, I'm not gonna say the addresses, but, I think you're aware of them.
Yeah.
They were both for irrigation use, and I can tell you that the preliminary determination is they're fine to use. So, but you'll get that officially from us. And,
Okay.
And then the other thing we do, coming up for 2017, so we'll actually begin a year before that, is all the wells that we've identified that are active, we have to go back out and say, hey, is it still active, just to re-verify. That's the agreement that we have with the regulatory agencies. So there's still a lot more work to be done with private wells, especially with emergent contaminants. We're investigating. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but so far for Mashpee, it looks okay, based on the work that's been done on base and off base with the private well testing. And then in the future, it's my intention, as I've been doing all year, providing information to Mr. Harrington. I'm going to continue to do that, give you the updated groundwater plume maps. I can leave these here for you. We also issue every year, usually in the spring, it's called a land use control report. Just summarize all the things that went on during the year. And it's good information to have.
There's a disc that the CD you provided earlier.
Is that the one you just got?
Yeah,
That's actually something new. That was the land use control implementation plan,
okay,
which includes the private well program, but a whole bunch of other stuff that we do.
okay.
I just thought you'd want to have that so you could see, the scope that we're dealing with.
Yep.
But the letter report is something we submit to EPA and DP on an annual basis, and it summarizes all the things we've done, including my visit here tonight. That'll be in there. And then, anything to do with private wells or issues or things that have come up along the way. So good to have that. And any reports that come out, private well summaries, I'll get you. Usually, I think I did it last February and March, give you a summary for the previous year, all the private wells that we've sampled during the year, and what the status of them is, whether they're active and what purpose, and if they've been tested. So you'll get all that information. And obviously, making myself available to come here, give you an update in person. And if that doesn't work out, then certainly we'll continue to do phone calls and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm curious, how many people have you got working on these sorts of things?
Right now, it's about 25 people. There are 3 government employees, and the rest are all contractors, and I'm one of the government employees. Although, as I said before, we are hiring a couple other folks, government employees, so. Yeah, we'll probably get up to about 30, I'm guessing, by the time, about a year from now. So. Used to be over 400. Used to have about 20 to 25 government employees and 400 contractors back in the late 90s.
Wow.
I work in community involvement. I'm the community involvement lead of one.
Right,
We used to have 7 people working.
right,
Community involvement at one point.
right.
Back then, if you go, you've been around.
Now you're the only one?
Right now I am.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, I guess it's a good sign if we only have you. That means that things aren't getting worse and therefore more people
Well, we're
to work
trying.
on it.
We're trying.
Excellent.
If that changes, then you'll see somebody else, maybe, I don't know. Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
thank
much.
you.
And I vote against your retirement.
Last man standing.
31 Nick Trail. Anybody here for Nick Trail?
31 Nick Trail. No, there's no one here for Nick Trail. The engineer who did this is also the coach of a basketball team. So that he got stuck and couldn't find anybody to come in for him.
I'm curious, I know what it is, I just don't know what the alphabet soup is. The GOTMS.
Well, that's our permitting software.
What's TMS?
Town management system.
Thank you. I wouldn't have known that. I
Okay.
know it is GOTMS.
I was one of the early adopters on that program way
Right,
back
yeah,
in
you
the
were one of the
day.
first users of it, yep.
I knew what it was, I just didn't know what this alphabet soup was. Do we need a representative, or have we got enough to act on this?
I think we have enough to act on it, but that's up to you.
I went over everything, and I think we can act on this one.
Yeah, I'm just reading up on it.
Done.
So the major issue here looks like the number of bedrooms.
Take one, pass one down. I'm sorry, the major issue is what?
Number of
Number of
bedrooms.
bedrooms.
Yeah, the number of bedrooms is one of the issues. I think the other important variance too is the depth of groundwater. And I made my comments accordingly on that. I think that the board has granted the other properties with that same variance. It's not, he's not asking even for a full foot, he's asking just shy of that. And it was set by modeling, it was not an adjustment, so they know where, have a good idea where groundwater is, so they're not expecting it to come up any higher than that, that should, where the modeling is typically a pretty solid location and is the approved location per the soil evaluation protocol. The bedroom, what wasn't so much an issue, it was just a matter until we got a floor plan. There was no real good floor plan to go with, and then the engineer went through the house and provided one on the plan. And in dealing with the attorney from Nutter, McClellan and Fish in Boston, they decided that they would open up one of the rooms, which they showed a 5 foot. Our regulation is 6 foot, so I think the one key thing too is that because they're cesspools, it has to be done prior to the sale. And I personally don't know where they are in the sale process.
Oh, so they are selling
They,
this.
they are definitely selling.
But as far as we know, there's no offers or buyer.
I don't know that because I didn't ask the attorney that, and I have not dealt with a realtor, and the engineer didn't say anything either.
And can we stipulate, I mean, I know you're gonna put a red flag in GOTMS. Is there any other stipulation that we can do as far as the limiting the number of bedrooms, that
We could do a
family
deed-
room
we-
doesn't get closed back
Right,
down again?
we could do a
after
deed
sale?
restriction,
Is that warranted?
sure.
I
It's-
mean, we've got a 6,500 square foot lot,
Right,
and if the property gets sold and somebody comes and tears it down and,
right.
you know, it
Right.
needs to be limited to a 3-bedroom.
Yeah, we'd certainly do a deed restriction.
When was this house built?
Oh, boy, let me see if we've got that. Prior to 83, I'm sure it goes farther back than that. I don't have a copy of the assessor's card.
So putting a flag in the GOTMS is, and then augmenting that with the deed restriction, if this house is torn down like Lucy was
Yeah, the-
proposing, then they could put in a new system or an auxiliary system and have additional bedrooms, is that not correct? With
Well-
like an ultraviolet or some other innovative alternative?
That's
No?
not gonna get him additional bedrooms, no.
No, so
No.
that system that we saw in the basement of that other property, they couldn't, it needs to be restricted in perpetuity to 3 bedrooms? If the house were raised and rebuilt?
Yeah, but if the house were raised and rebuilt, it's a whole different ballpark.
Well, are we in a zone 2 here?
Yes,
Yeah, so,
yeah, we're pretty solidly in a zone 2. This zone 2 isn't gonna go away. Sometimes I hesitate on some of the individual wells in town, because we've had zone 2 changes. So if we don't have to restrict a property, I hate putting a deed restriction on it, because the registry of deeds is very difficult to have a deed restriction rescinded, essentially.
but this is solidly in the zone.
This is solidly in a zone 2.
So they're never gonna have more than 3 bedrooms.
Right. We put it in GOTMS more internally, just so there aren't other permits issued, and so the other departments know.
But a deed restriction's unnecessary.
The deed restriction will all help if someone else purchases the property, because it would be an attachment to the property, certainly.
Okay, thanks for explaining.
And it's not unheard of for us,
No, absolutely not. No, it's very common practice to do that.
especially for a teeny tiny.
Certainly
lot.
within the board's purview to add it as a condition.
Yep.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the variances for 31 Nick Trail with the following conditions. That the family room that's outlined on the plan have at least a 6-foot wide cased opening. That the building inspector or the health agent will verify the opening of the room prior to the certificate of compliance being issued. That a red flag is put into GOTMS so that there aren't any further permits issued against the property that would alter the number of bedrooms. The upgrade will occur prior to the sale of the property, and that there is a deed restriction placed on the property to limit it to 3 bedrooms in perpetuity.
Glenn, on the plan, it says remove door and open and case to at least 5 feet wide, and in the recommendation, it's 6 foot.
Yeah, the engineer put 5 feet on there. 6 foot is our Board of Health regulation.
They'll be told that that's incorrect.
The motion was for 6 feet.
Right, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that they,
They'll have to revise it to 6.
I second.
Those in favor? Unanimous. 87 Lighthouse Lane.
Oop. 87 Lighthouse Lane. 87 Lighthouse Lane. Amazingly, my comments are actually old, because right after I did my comments, we received the draft of the new plans.
Oh, my goodness.
The perk tests were done today, and the plan was also emailed in today.
Wow.
At least draft plans.
Great.
So, it's a 3-bedroom, standard 2 500-gallon, H20 chambers with 4 feet of stone. I just have the one copy, I'm sorry, I just made that right before I came up. And it looks good. The chambers are gonna be a little deeper, but that's because of the depth of the septic tank. It's on town water, the abutters are on town water. We have more than 100 feet to the vegetated wetland. The coastal bank is 80 feet, but the coastal bank, our 150-foot regulation is only for new construction, and this is a repair, so it doesn't come into play. I think it's certainly meeting
No
maximum.
variances?
I think just for the depth,
Oh,
because the leaching is gonna be greater than 3 feet below grade. And other than that, there's no other variances, so I think that it's, definitely meets maximum feasible compliance.
It feels like it's so easy after the long, hard struggle.
I didn't want to think about when this came to our
I was
attention.
wondering in my head, I'm like,
Engineer on the job.
3 years?
yeah.
Is it 3 years?
I don't know.
It feels like it.
Motion?
So do we need to approve this, or is this just?
It's just in draft form, but,
But you have no issues with it? Except for the depth of
Move that the
groundwater?
final be the same as the draft.
Well, we can move to give you, I mean, you're gonna approve it. You're gonna review and approve it unless there's something else.
right, right.
I make a motion to have the health agent review and approve unless there's something else, more variances required, and it can come before the board for 87 Lighthouse Lane to proceed with their septic repair and upgrade.
Yep, next step will be getting bids for the installation,
Excellent.
and then, bring the bids back before the board when we get those. They do have somebody they want to have do the work, and so it's really up to them, because the lien's going on their property, as long as the price is competitive. So I think this will move quickly from here.
Fantastic.
And tell me what you said about depth of groundwater?
Depth of groundwater is not an issue here,
Oh, okay.
because it's way up on the bluff.
Okay, I got it. Okay,
Yeah,
I
no,
second
it's got a
that.
good 12 feet of clearance below the leaching, which is 6 to 8 feet, 6 feet, should be 5 feet from grade to the top of the leaching, and then about 8.5 feet to the bottom.
Got it.
So it's not, depth of groundwater is not an issue.
I second that.
Those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Unanimous. 46 Pond Circle.
46 Pond Circle. At the last meeting, the board directed me to send a condemnation letter to this property because it's been more than the 2 years. Just before I was gonna do the letter, I called Kendall at the county just to make sure that nothing had happened with them as far as them submitting an application, and no application had been received. I spoke with Craig May and the town treasurer, and he said that there was no movement as far as the tax title issue. And then I got a call from Human Services, and Gail Wilson had been contacted by the owner. And so I spoke with Gail, and we set up a meeting for tomorrow afternoon.
What's Human Services got to do with it?
Well, they've been working with the family with other issues. So, I'll be able to sit down with them tomorrow
How old
afternoon.
is this issue here? 46 Pond Circle?
We're 4 years in the making here.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. The reason I ask is that if the 1 o'clock meeting tomorrow doesn't happen, then what do we do? Because, this thing's got gray hair. Because I simply suspect it's not gonna happen.
Well, I can move forward with the condemnation letter and force them to come into a meeting on the 17th. And certainly, if the meeting does happen, I was gonna ask them to submit to county and fill out their loan application, so we have a definite answer from Kendall by the 17th.
But you gotta give them a deadline.
Yeah, and so, I think with those items looming, then,
That's okay.
we should get some action.
Good.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't see that there's any, I mean, they got in touch with Human Services,
Right.
so we don't have anything to
I
go on
was just
that
curious what Human Services
if
had
they
to
were
do
gonna
with it.
cancel the appointment. I mean, we're gonna operate
No.
under the assumption that they've gotten in touch with them about this issue, and Glenn's got an appointment, and
The idea of the condemnation letter, it was a show cause, just to get them to come in and talk to us. So I'm gonna get a chance to do that tomorrow afternoon. So, again, if they don't show, they're gonna get the sorry letter, and, we'll have to go from there.
Okay. Do we need to do anything tonight?
No, I don't think so. I think I got my marching orders for them.
Lakeside Estates.
No change on 71. didn't have anything big, but that, I've been keeping it on the agenda just in case.
Okay. Deer Crossing. Where are we with respect to award of the contract?
Finance Committee is gonna see that on the 17th, and I will go, which is the same night as our meeting, but they start at 6:30. So I'm hoping to get in to them before our meeting here and get that for them to approve the, some money so we can do the final award on that bid.
There were a couple of things we asked that you verify or contact somebody or something on the bidders.
I did, and I presented that information to the town manager, and it was very helpful.
What does that mean?
Well, one of the bidders did have an issue, but it was several years ago, and it was in regards to a prevailing wage job, and this is not a prevailing wage.
Okay.
So that really didn't come into play, and,
There was an insurance issue, as I recall.
Does their insurance have to be issued
Yeah,
from Massachusetts for the Rhode
Massachusetts versus
Island
Rhode Island.
company?
that didn't really come into play.
Okay.
So FinCom on the 17th, and then,
And then we
Here.
should be able to move from then.
okay, I will not be here on the 17th.
Yep.
I will not be here on April 21st.
Planning ahead.
Take that.
I'll be coming back from Boston, so hopefully the traffic will be okay.
April 21st.
I have one other,
It's warm and wonderful, I hope.
I have one other piece of, business. The animal inspector stipend.
Is that the memo that you sent for the allocation of the $450?
That's correct.
Okay.
Just through the auditing, there, what's happened the last couple of years, they took the animal inspector stipend out of the professional and technical account and put it in through salary so it could be paid through payroll. And so that then as of the last audit, they have requested backup as far as when the board adopted the $450. They wanted some actual idea of when that amount was adopted.
Who's asking?
The personnel, but it's ultimately coming from the auditors.
There's no record of that in Munis?
Now, this has been doing for 30 years, well beyond Munis, well before GOTMS permitting, and what I did find, I went back to 1991 and found, and it's kind of scary because Ronnie remembered the conversation, that the board approved the equal distribution of funds to the two animal inspectors. It's just that they didn't mention an amount in the motion. Even though the $450 had been used at least since 1983, I couldn't find the actual time where it was adopted. And the problem is that the $450 or the $900 for the two animal inspectors has always been included in the budget, but it's never really been broken out. That's partially true since I've been here. Back in 1991, this motion that I found did say that there was an animal inspector account. So it's just that we don't have any records from back then.
Just respond to them saying that we're sorry.
No, have to ask the board to make a vote that the $450 is the amount that is paid to the animal inspector.
Each animal inspector.
Each animal inspector. Right now, we only have one, but there are two coming up in the next budget.
Okay, because some years we've had an animal control officer, and many years we haven't recently, and so Ronnie has been doing the whole job. But when we have an animal control officer, aren't they the second animal inspector?
No,
We had a vet for a while,
we had vet for a long time.
okay?
The animal control officer, June Daly, was the animal inspector with a vet for a long time. But the vet has usually been the second. Ronnie, when June retired, Ronnie took over and then had a vet as the second, as a backup. And then the last few years, the vet, Dr. Oldham, backed out and didn't want to do it anymore. And so the last few years, it's just been Ronnie on her own.
And regardless,
But
we're
doesn't
only,
this come under the police department now?
No, the animal inspector is a state position through the Department of Agriculture that is recommended by the Board of Health.
Comes under the police.
Animal control officer is under the police. The animal inspector is a different position.
I'm trying to get rid of the job.
and so if we have two, are they doing $450 each? And
Yes.
if we only have Ronnie, is she getting $450 or is she getting $900?
She's getting $450.
Okay.
Motion?
So I'll make a motion that the animal inspector's annual fee is $450.
Stipend?
Stipend, thank you.
I second that.
Need anything more than that, Glenn?
Nope.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
So what, do you need us to sign this or
Nope,
anything?
nope. I just need the vote taken so that I can put it in the minutes.
I have a copy here.
Mashpee Cares Committee.
Mashpee Cares. Okay, I went to my first Mashpee Cares meeting.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll thank you every
Notice
time.
I was looking at him.
We reviewed the Barnstable County Regional Substance Abuse Council's report, their action plan for 2015 to 2020. And what we did was, or had to do for that meeting, was to review the action plan and pick out certain parts of the plan that we wanted to implement or see implemented, partially through our mission statement, but also what we wanted to have get done. And so each of the members went through and picked out portions of the report that basically said that we wanted to look at, let me see, really more of the front end, which is prevention, versus the back end, which is treatment and recovery. So we thought that we would have more of an impact doing prevention. And the reason why we did this now is the next meeting on December 15th is going to be with a gentleman named Carl Alves, and he's from the state, and he's also going to help us focus on these goals and help us implement those goals. So,
What state office is he with?
Mass Tap, and I wish I could tell you what that was, because
Okay, I'm sorry I asked.
I have it, I just don't have it
That's
handy.
all right. It sounds like having Glenn take over this responsibility was a good idea.
I couldn't attend. I just couldn't. So, yes, it was a great idea.
Waste Management Committee, Calliope?
The final meeting is coming up on December 14th, which seems,
Sorry, what?
our final meeting will be
Okay.
on the 14th. It seems to be a night in high demand. I have a couple of things that I'm supposed to be attending, and so I cannot actually attend that last meeting. If anybody wants to go on my stead, they're more than welcome to. I submitted the approved minutes of, what is it, October 23rd, where we discussed the goals of the Waste Management Committee and how we could fit the role of the Board of Health into that and the recommendations that we had talked about. So those were in the approved minutes, so I submitted that. The chairman had requested that all recommendations be submitted in writing, so I submitted the electronic version of our minutes from that October 23rd meeting. And I verbalized them as well. I corrected them in the minutes because they weren't quite enumerated correctly, and so they're, the four recommendations that we agreed upon are in there. A couple of other recommendations were discussed by other committee members, and
Anything new?
no, I'm sure it's gonna be business as usual.
And on the 14th, the last meeting, will a final recommendation be made? And you won't be there for that?
I will not be there for that, and I do not believe that any of the recommendations that the Board of Health put forth would be implemented, and I don't think that there's anything that my presence would do to dissuade anybody from their position.
Say that they won't be implemented.
I do not believe, I didn't, tally backroom
Okay.
votes or something, so my feeling is that it's such a politicized issue, and it's such an emotional issue that it's, in my opinion, going to be business as usual, which of course is
Not.
Okay.
not gonna, there's no such thing as business as usual, so when it comes to waste, so, hopefully, I guess the good news is that Catherine wanted to reassess whatever recommendations were submitted to the Board of Selectmen in 5 years, and her goal was if nothing changed as far as, like, say, the recycling rate, with.
Reassess in 5 years?
That's correct, that there would be like a concrete plan going forward, like pay-as-you-throw, or something that would align itself with the state DEP's recommendations for waste management, et cetera. And I assume Catherine will be there at that December 14th meeting, and that's something I think that she seems pretty clear on. So 5 years, maybe this will all be reassessed. We'll see.
Thank you for putting in a lot of time and energy into that committee.
We were provided with meeting dates all the way through next December. I don't know that we need to approve this or whatever, because we generally deal with it. We adjust it as necessary. We need to do anything with this?
I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay.
And again, for the record, I will not be here for this April 21st meeting.
I'm sure Fran will make a note of it.
Wait a minute.
I have a calendar, Bert. I
Oh, it's
checked
all the
it
way to
against
April 21st? I have a calendar too.
I already checked it.
I did not
I did not. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
We stand adjourned at 8:14 PM.